Hello, everybody. Hey, is it each? What's going on? I hope everybody's having a good day, wherever you happen to be. You know, anyway, it's one of those days, lazy, relaxing, flashing back some years of acting. It's amazing how everything has changed. You know, I remember when I first started, I began to study. I used to live in Brooklyn because I've been in California since 1975, right after Godfather 2 opened. But I remember as a teenager, I had to lie by my age, of course, to try to get into the adult class in acting. I didn't want to be with the kids. I was always much more mature than my age. And I used to take the train from Brooklyn into Manhattan. I remember I had to stop. I went from Euclid Avenue and Pitkin. That was a section in Brooklyn. Towards the end of Brooklyn, you crossed over about 3-4 blocks. You got into Queens. You were going east. Anyway, then I used to change to Canal Street and take a different train to go up to 57th Street or get off on 42nd. Depends, in those days. I just, from one track to another, I went up and down the stairs. It was different. So I used to go up to, I think I used to get off on 57th Street, and then I used to walk up to Carnegie Hall. And Lee Strasberg had a class there on Tuesdays and Thursdays, a private class. And then we had about 40 people there. I remember he had his son-in-law, Jones. I can't remember. He looked like James Dean. He was married to his daughter, Susan. And Lee was, head of the actor studio, method acting. He had a pretty busy studio going. There were 3 people. There was Stella Adler, and there was Sandy Meiser. Stella was very close to Lee, and some people went with Stella. I never actually took a class, but I knew quite a bit about Stella Adler's way of, very close to Lee's method acting, Meiser was a little more, repetitious. It was a little different, which a lot of actors use it, and okay, I'm okay. I'm into the physical, mental, and then, internal, and then executed, I like to become who I'm playing if I have the opportunity and time to get into it. And Lee told me that. He was very hard on everybody. The only person that came out of there besides myself was Ali McGraw, who went on to star in Goodbye Columbus. It was one of her first movies. She was a high fashion model, very tall, beautiful. I remember she always was very friendly to me. She always used to, I was very kind of shy and lonely. I kept away from everybody. I always used to always be the last guy on top, sitting and listen. I used to overlook down and watch everybody. And then when I got a stage, I did my thing, and Lee would let me do my thing, and then he would ask me how I felt, and I would explain where I was at, and everything. And once I finished, then he explained. Sometimes he didn't see certain things, and we used to get into a little confrontation, but it was all good. There was a time where I was a little short fused. I almost wanted to throw him from the 10th floor right through the building, through the window into the bottom. Carnegie Hall was right downstairs, but it was the Carnegie Hall building where they had the big theater down there, and they used to have concerts, and they had the Carnegie Deli on 57 and 7. Carnegie Hall it's a landmark. Actually, they used to have apartments in there. Marlon Brando lived in there. The Green Book, the pianist lived in there too. They used to have suites. Besides, there was quite a few acting classes going on in different floors. Dancing classes. You know, there were so many studios inside that building. It's incredible. I remember many times I would be waiting in the corner waiting for the light. I would run into Dustin Hoffman, Rod Steiger, you know, and I would just strike a conversation. Then say, "Come on, walk with me." And I used to walk with them for almost half hour, you know, and catch up on their thing, you know, talk about, you know, the method, you know, Lee and all that, Steiger, you know, same thing, you know, they were pretty much friendly. And these were the early days, you know, going back to the days, I think The Graduate has just opened. Of course, Steiger was already known for On the Waterfront and many other movies. Capone, I think he played Capone, yeah, if I remembered. He had done several other movies. He was one of those actors. I think I worked in a movie with him where I had a scene. I play a wise guy, and I had a crossover, and he didn't want anybody to cross over in front of him, you know, like even that it was natural. But he didn't want that, you know, so he had to find a way to get through, somehow to maneuver your way to go to the next area. And it worked out, you know. He liked to be the leader of the conversation or the aggressive. Yeah, I respected him, you know. You know, so these guys were during the MacArthur era. There's a lot of those guys were pretty much thrown out of the country. You know, couldn't work. They had to leave the country, go to in Italy or Spain and work there. Kirk Douglas, a lot of directors, Marty Ridd, who I knew all these people very well. And they went to Italy, and that's where their career pretty much began to blossom, you know, and they kept working, directing, acting, you know, and I think like Azan stayed behind, and supposedly, I don't know if he revealed some of the people, point out people's names, because I remember when Scorsese and De Niro gave him a Special Achievement Award, Academy Award. They didn't show up, a lot of these people who were already members. I am a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Science in the Actors Branch, but I happened to go to Beverly Hills Hotel where they had, you know, this particular individual used to throw a big party, and they used to invite a lot of people in the industry who were Academy Award winners and everything. They used to have an event every year. And the media will be there, and also there used to be other the Beverly Hills Hotel. There was a lot of ballrooms which were taken care by studios and the Weinsteins when they were pretty much active, you know, and other companies. You know, after the awards, they would go there and throw the big parties in there. And I remember that year when Eli Kazan received the award that De Niro and Scorsese gave him. Because obviously he didn't leave the country, so he must have given up some names to MacArthur during the MacArthur era, you know, because these guys were supposedly called communists. They were Jewish, most of them. A lot of them were Jewish. So, and they were not allowed to work in America unless you're at it, unless you opened up. So anyway, my experience in those days was incredible. I mean, I used to walk up and down in Manhattan, you know, from all different. I love 42nd Street. I remember I used to get a steak for a couple of dollars. It'd be like 2-3 pound steak, a big potato, bread, salad on 42nd Street, and then walk up through 7th Avenue and go up to Carnegie Hall and go to school, or vice versa. I remember one time I was seeing this young dancer, beautiful girl, and we kind of, you know, kind of built something up from coffee to something else, you know. Because I took dancing too, also singing, but those parts didn't work for me. You know, acting was the thing that stuck with me. Dancing, I was never really very good. Singing, I was never very good. You know, I had a good voice, good baritone voice. You know, I tried out for a couple of Broadway musicals, but they didn't work. You know, so anyway, I invited her. I said, listen, you want to go? They have a Funny Girl premiere. Let's go give it a shot. Maybe we could get in there, you know. So we walked down, and there was the theater was across the street. As a matter of fact, that theater was where the Godfather, actually, Godfather 1 opened up, and I think Godfather 2 also opened. Well, listen, when those movies opened, they opened every theaters. The lines were, you had to wait like 3 showings before you got in. But for me, it was different because I was part of the movie. I just went up, and they recognized me, and whoever I was with walked right in, and pretty much. So anyway, I took this girl who was, you know, she didn't know. I thought she thought I was like 18, 19 years old, and I really wasn't. I was 17 somewhere, you know, and she was like 20, you know, 19, 20, you know. Beautiful girl, you know, but I was mature, you know, so I knew what was happening, and I knew how to you know, pretty much handle myself, and I actually liked her, you know. I saw her for a while, so we got there, you know, I tried to sneak in, so the people were crossing over from 7th Avenue into actually Broadway, from 7th Avenue into Broadway. And then there was an empty lot in there now, which is, of course, it's all buildings or high rises. It's right near where the ball drops on New Year's Eve, right across the way, you know. So, and we tried to sneak in, but we couldn't. The security didn't allow us. So we watched some of the celebrities go cross over. They went from the theater down to the party, crossed over from 7th to Broadway into the lot where they have these umbrellas or canopies set up for all the celebrities, guests, and everything. That was one of my first experiences in so-called, you know, Hollywood premiere. You know, I couldn't get in, but then eventually I did, of course, you know, my own movies, and I was invited in many Hollywood premieres. And as far as the girl, yeah, I had a nice thing going, and then eventually we went our separate ways. I really don't know what happened with her, you know. She had her hair down to, only 2 girls that I remember was the girl that played my girl in The Godfather 2, that I ended up telling the director to hire her. She was 17 years old. She had hair down to almost the ankles. She was so stunning. Her hair was so beautiful. And this girl that was a dancer that I dated for a while, she also had hair down to almost, you know, past her whatever knees, almost not to her ankles, you know. Gorgeous hair, gorgeous. And but I don't know what happened as far as getting back to Lee. Lee was very great to me. You know, he opened up a whole different level. I had gone to a different school before that, you know, which kind of, you know, kind of prepped me, you know, and they were good teachers. But Lee was the guy that pretty much opened up everything for me, you know. So I lasted there about 3 years, 4 years almost. But you know, Alma Girl used to come in and out, you know. She was at that age, for about 11 years older than me, you know, and she was very busy modeling. I didn't care what anybody was, you know. I just, you know, I was not struck by, you know, I was, you know, I respect them who they are. If they respected me, I've always been that way. You know, I was never struck by, I would go over somebody, even if I was a big fan, and introduce myself, I congratulate them and say I was a big fan. But I wouldn't be like, if you ask me who's my idol, you know, it's a matter of respect. If we had respect for one another, we respected each other. So, you know, there were many women that I really loved, you know, and in those days, the studio days, the Hollywood days, there were so many beautiful women involved in show business. You know, there were contract days. You had the leading ladies, you had the characters ladies. There were different categories. And pretty much the leading ladies were like models. They were stunning. They groomed them. They had a pretty much the daily routine was acting, school, whatever was, dancing, fancying. They had to learn everything, singing, all kinds of things. Those days are gone, So there's few schools you could go to. I don't know what's going on in New York as far as schools, but L.A. also. I don't. People talk about acting. It's like third, fourth generation to me because the real people that kind of built the foundation, all dead. They've been dead for many, many, many years. So and it gets a little polluted, and I got really, I'm one of the few who really study with the originals, and so when somebody wants to get into that, I become very sensitive because it's really a very sensitive area. It's a very gray area that, it's like, it's not that easy to explain. It's easy for me to explain, but it's not that easy for the other person to accept or understand for the reason that, the way I approach my characters is much different than most people out there. And today's generation, I respect it. There's some great actors. That's why the English Australians are great actors. They're kind of trained in a way like the old school days. And I have tremendous respect for that. That's why those people used to go from one movie to another. And they were, they were well trained, like a bodybuilder, took care of his whole body. He or she, they had to work out the whole body. And so an actor had to do everything that he needed or she needed to do to become a full-fledged actor, to call themselves actors. Today, you become a member of the union, you're an actor. I have no idea what that means, but the union is no longer the union that it used to be anyway. It's merged with people that really don't belong. It's like the producers are producers, the writers are writers, they specialize what they do. And as far as actors, at one time we had the Actors Union that was about actors. You had the movie actors, the stage, equity was stage, SAG was Screen Actors Guild, motion picture and television, pretty much drama. And then you had AFSTRA, and AFSTRA was another union that dealt with singers and dancers and soap opera people, which were they were different category. They were different style of acting, those people. Now everything's merged. You have all the different categories. I don't understand, and they keep making up new contracts and changing things, and I don't do those kind of movies. I do movies that hit the screen, not as much as like they used to do in the old days, but and pretty much movies that are made for the screen or television shows that are network television. Well, of course, cable is very big now, so we'll go along with that. So. But I don't do things on the come where they're going to try to sell them. I used to always work in movies that they were sold. They were going to appear in the theaters. They were, those are the projects that I did. It's not like, hey, my daily life is like I'm creating things all the time. I'm active. You might not see me in the movie. There's been a lot of movies that I should have been in, unfortunately, for personal or other reasons. I was not. I won't go into it, but many movies, at least 9 movies, could have been double that because those movies would have led to other movies. And I regret it. Yeah, not fair. People that should have stuck up didn't. People that originally opened up their mouth and said, that those roles were mine, they should have fought for me. You didn't have to fire because I was rightful. I was better than anybody else that did it. Anyway, they couldn't, because I'm trained. I was trained by the best people. Strasbourg, hey, took care of Marilyn Monroe, James Dean. Everybody went through Strasbourg. Method acting is one of the specialties that is a little different than every other acting. Hey, listen, you know, some actors are great working with the camera. They know how to position themselves and execute whatever. But, to me, I always approach the characters in a way where, as if I was on stage, I made myself in that space that I had and pretty much, went into and fit in and use it as much as I could the same way in film, so I treated film the same way as stage, television the same way, except, you didn't have the ocean on stage, but you had to, pretend or arrive there that there was an ocean or whatever, or there was land far away, where in movies you actually physically are there, the actual location, the physicality of the place, the atmosphere is there. But anyway, just killing the day. I hope you learned some things, and we'll see you next time. This is Frank Sivero, killing about 20-some minutes of conversation about acting. I wish everybody the best of luck. If you give it a shot, try to give a serious shot. Don't think that it is, because the whole world is on stage. Everybody looks like an actor. Everybody could imitate somebody, but it doesn't mean that you understand. It's like a surgeon. I always treat it like, that operates on the heart. You better know how to operate, otherwise the patient dies. The same thing with your character. You better know how to approach your character, otherwise you die. Your audience gets lost. So if you want to give it a shot, learn everything possible, how to approach it, how to arrive at your destination, and then proceed your journey with the character. And whatever it takes you, at least you know what tools to use and how to use them. You can't just say imitate somebody else's work or imitate somebody else's line or try to do somebody else's. It doesn't work that way. You got to be in the moment. You got to learn how to listen, look, behave, think what the other person is saying. If somebody's saying anything, try to use everything in whatever spaces you happen to be in, and use it. Your eyes, your mouth, your movements, kind of tell the story. Hey, listen, it doesn't mean that you could have 900 trillion lines in the movie and you're the lead of the movie. You could be a lead in a movie with 10 lines in the movie. You don't have to say much, but your actions of the character, who you are, and what you do, and being stable, and take the audience to a journey to believe them, to make believe you who you are throughout that 90 minutes, 2 hours, 2 hours and 20 minutes, or whatever it is, or 3 hours. You got to be able to do that. The same thing with stage. You got to be able to sustain, otherwise you lose the audience, And so, anyway, not everybody's meant to. That's why I always said, I'm always the devil's advocate about when people say, hey, I'm thinking about getting into, I could tell you it's all different now because I don't bother. I'm a very private person. I really don't know who's out there, who's good, because I don't mingle with the people that perhaps might know that, Hey, listen, I treat it the same way as going to the gym, because I think about it every single day. I study everything. I try to read, educate myself, if it's medicine, if it's law, If it's a lot of different things, I educate myself. That's part of acting. That's part of going to school. So I might not be in a physical class to exercise or in the gym to use the weights, but I will read, I will educate myself, and I will put that information in my subconscious. And if I'm called upon to use it, at least I have some knowledge with the experts and put it together and execute it, with intelligence. So anyway, listen, yeah, everybody, I want to thank you very much for listening. I like to charge a lot of money for this conversation, but you have a good day, good evening, and good night, wherever it may be. Hey, by the way, this is Frank Sivero. Thank you very much.